Man, this is yet another Ferrari Monza special. Fred Vasseur has worked his magic. Yes, Ferrari has changed as a unit. They want to be more consistent. They want to be more equal around all the circuits. But what have they done today, Kunal? They have now won a race at the most high downforce circuit in Formula One, at Monza, at Monaco, and now the most low downforce circuit in Formula One, at Monza. This is the Ferrari I know and love. This is what Ferrari is made of. 100%.
It's either 100% downforce or 0% downforce, right? And all the other tracks that come in the middle ranges of downforce requirements. No, we'll just be there, it seems like. But of course, we're having fun. We're celebrating Ferrari winning at home in Monza with their blue-eyed boy, Charles Leclerc. My goodness, that was some win. That Italian anthem playing on that beautiful, most celebrated podium of modern time in Formula One was incredible. About 100,000 people underneath with all those big, Ferrari flags. And I actually have a question, which, ever since I started watching Formula One, which was now a long time ago, I used to wonder, hey, if I've paid so much money to go and watch that race, I'm standing there, and what if they just put a flag over my head? Do I get to see it?
That's so true. That's so true. I can't even imagine what it must be like for those people. But, we had the opportunity to see what it was like back in Chennai, where we were there for the first ever night street race in India, for the Indian Racing League in India, their F4 championship. And I was commentating along with Sundaram and also Karun Chandok's brother, Suhail, who's an excellent broadcaster by himself. And Suhail got a WhatsApp message from Karun Chandok in the middle of one of our Formula 4 races, where he basically got sent a picture of Karun on the podium, and you can see his smile even though he's not the driver. Because look at the crowd, look at the emotion, look at the passion that was there at that point. This is all Ferrari, and I love this, right? We're now building up to such a great surge of emotion, Sundaram, only to now see Ferrari finish 8th and 9th in Baku. That is a true Ferrari special.
I think that would be classic Ferrari, but you're absolutely right. Seeing thousands of spectators there, literally, and especially on that main straight, it's incredible to see. And at one point, it almost felt like there were more people at Monza on that main straight than we had people celebrating the T20 World Cup win in Mumbai. It was that crowded. It was that crowded. But it just goes to show how much the Italians love Formula One, despite all the trouble that Ferrari tend to have from every now and then. They've not won a championship in a very long time, but that loyalty, it speaks for itself. And one thing I actually wanted to mention, the roster for 2025 for Ferrari, all of them have won their home races this season. Leclerc at Monaco, Hamilton at Silverstone, and Ferrari at Monza. So they've actually got all the important races. They've won their important races this season. So I think Ferrari's done. Like you mentioned, they could be 8th, 9th, 10th, wherever in Baku or the rest of the races, but they've hit their targets for the year.
So because of all the wonderful work you guys did in Chennai for the Indian Racing League, this podcast is actually coming to you guys on the Monday. A very supportive old listener, if I may call her that, reminded me that today is Monday. Okay. And I said, okay, we're already a day late for the podcast, but you guys are doing fantastic work. The voices of motorsport, the voices of the first ever night race of the Indian Racing League, that's now being very, very popular in India with very well-known celebrity team owners, as we've seen in most other sports as well. But switching focus to that one big celebrity who won at home in Monza for Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, some really interesting memes that have come out there saying, of course, Charles said, I've won in Monaco and I've won in Monza. And that's it, like Sundaram said, I've hit my targets for the year. Clearly, races that begin with the words Mon is where his focus to win is. Maybe that was a target that Ferrari, sort of put out there for him, saying.
So Montreal's next.
Montreal's next.
That's
just, I hope they don't have to wait that long. But Ferrari actually, Charles Leclerc was joking, saying we won in Monaco and then we went on to have the 4 worst races of my career ever in Ferrari. And now he's hoping that doesn't happen with Baku and Singapore coming up. Although they believe that Baku and Singapore is where they will be competitive. And if at all their upgrades get exposed, like most upgrades are getting exposed, it will be only Austin, which is like a normal racing circuit, when things might just not work out for Ferrari. So I'm pretty optimistic. I love the fact, I love two things from Monza. First is Charles Leclerc and that incredible stint he put on those hard tires. That was absolutely beautiful. I mean, typically we've seen Ferrari be fast on the Saturday and then just going backwards on the Sunday, right? But this Ferrari, for the second race in a row, Charles Leclerc has used the alternate strategy to gain positions and finish on the podium. And then the second thing was, when last were we at a race, apart from Singapore last year, where Red Bull Racing was only the fourth fastest team by a distance?
Yeah. It feels like we're in 2008 all over again. And we should touch up upon Red Bull in a second.
No, after 10 minutes, we got to celebrate this
exactly.
win. I mean, you have a Michael Schumacher flag right behind you, Samuel. You're a Tifosian living in Mumbai.
And I've also got a Red Bull diecast car that also reminds me a lot of what they were like in Monza this weekend, just stuck in one place and packed in a box, because that's what the race was like. But we'll come to Red Bull in a second. But the reason, actually not the reason, the way we should celebrate Leclerc's win is by telling you how special it was and why they could also be so good in Baku and Singapore particularly. This race was one where Ferrari won not on raw pace, but on tyre management. That's something that their technical director said at the start of the season as well. We want to make this car more balanced and better at tyre management, and also better at straight line speed. The two things that they absolutely nailed this weekend. But the whole surrounding element around it is, how did Leclerc not end up having as much deg compared to McLaren, who comparatively were much faster, locked out 1 and 2, set in one of the fastest lap times, even got the fastest lap at the end, if I'm not mistaken. So how did Ferrari and Leclerc in particular ace this compared to all the McLarens, Kunal?
It's a very interesting question, because typically when we go to circuits, not the outlier ones like, say, Monaco or Monza, everything else in the middle of that, the usual narrative in Formula One is the more wing you take, the better your tire degradation is, or the lower your tire degradation is, because the wings are avoiding, or they're stopping your tires from sliding, right? Especially in the high-speed sequences. But in Monza, it was actually the reverse, because Ferrari chose, and they were very proud to have chosen, a very low wing, low downforce configuration setup, whereas McLaren chose a slightly more downforce setup. So the Ferrari was gaining a tenth. So basically, Leclerc was gaining a tenth on the straights on the McLarens each lap. And the McLarens were then gaining a little more time, or gaining some time back through the corners because of the wings they had. But in Monza, if you're carrying more speed through the corners, you're actually stressing the tires out more. So in effect, Ferrari just benefited by not having that much more wings. So they took the corners slower. And Alex Brundle did a wonderful explanation of Leclerc's driving style at Monza, and how this was on Sky Sports, right? By the way, thank you for the shout out, Sky Sports, for our Helmut Marko episode last week. Appreciate the fact that you linked to our original episode as well. Not all media houses are genuinely kind about this, right? Yeah. So thank you. But that Alex Brundle sequence is wonderful to follow, because the one thing you absolutely need to do in Monza is brake in the straight line and then accelerate in the straight line. And that's what Charles Leclerc was doing each time. And for those who love the numbers, we've actually pasted some of these graphs in our WhatsApp chat. You can find it in the description of this episode if you want to join the WhatsApp channel. But Leclerc, from before lap 33 onward, so more than half of the race, Somil and Sundaram, his target lap time was 1:23.500. So 1 minute, 23 seconds, and 23 and a half seconds. And he's done every single lap within half a second of that target lap. And that consistency was one of the most beautiful things to follow throughout the race in Monza. It wasn't the most exciting race, not the most number of overtakes, but you have to dig deeper through these layers of data to actually find your narratives. And we presented this live in the post-race broadcast on Viaplay this weekend.
That's a very interesting point that you mentioned. But also kind of just looking at some data. The start of the race, the asphalt temperature was somewhere near 50 degrees, and towards the end, it just continuously kept falling further lower and lower, and towards the end, it was somewhere closer to 42, and that is prime McLaren area where they're able to use their tires much better in cooler temperatures. So even when everything probably seemed like would be in their favor, it really wasn't. So a brilliant drive by Leclerc and very being extremely consistent on those hard tires. I still have to do a little bit of digging to understand how he managed to do that, but I'm sure I'm going to be very, very surprised by what I see.
No, but this is great from what Charles Leclerc has. This is great from Charles Leclerc in terms of his driving. Everything that he's done to operationally nail it. And we saw the pressure, we saw the focus that he was in towards the final part of the race, where Ferrari kept on giving him instructions. And he said, no, not now. I need to focus on what I'm doing. But on the opposite side, a race won by someone is also a race lost by someone else. And this feels to me like a gift from Woking to Maranello, the opposite of what we had in 2007 when the drawings got leaked and went over to Woking. This is a fresh hot plate handed over to them. Ferrari winning is such a big thing. They've just given them that gift at their home race with both hands. I cannot fathom how this has happened. One of my favorite things to do after I'm done with work, just grab a drink, sit down, chat with your friends. It's all about taking a snapshot in time and just looking back at it and realizing how things could have been different from that moment. We, as friends, talk about any random stuff about football, about how Man United could have been a better team if David Moyes had better players, so on and so forth. But in this particular moment, I want to take a snapshot of that grid and that first lap to see Norris first, Piastri second, Leclerc third, and then McLaren having so many fastest laps. How do you bottle it from there? How would you explain it to a random individual who's just time traveled, Kunal, to tell them that this is what happened eventually?
So one of the easiest explanations is that the pre-race tire models indicated that it's going to be a two-stop strategy, come what may. So McLaren was driving to target lap times. They were actually 0.3 seconds quicker. So 0.3 of a second quicker, Piastri versus Charles Leclerc every single lap. But that also meant that Piastri was using his tires up that much more. For again, those interested in the numbers, and I have some numbers from Formula One themselves, I think Piastri's race tire degradation was 0.027 seconds per lap. And this is how minor the margins get. So remember the number, 0.027. But what was Leclerc's degradation variable out there? His degradation variable was 0.025. So it was 0.02 seconds per lap lower degradation than McLaren. These are numbers from Formula One, right? Which means they've also gotten it from Pirelli. But the beauty is, Sundaram, that they are able to, they of course track and they are able to share such minute details that went into victory, that went into giving them the win itself, on Sunday. And to me, the win was also, sort of like Somil said, a gift from Woking to Maranello. I also believe Oscar Piastri's move on Lando Norris helped Leclerc then overtake Norris, which then, of course, gave him the opportunity to go for that win. That win was beautiful. That was incredible. But before we switch to McLaren and the gifting of the win and all of that, I have to ask you guys, and this is, down to the old narratives that Ferrari is Formula One is Ferrari is the most important team in Formula One. And there always seems a little bit more magic in the air, magic in the chatter when Ferrari wins a race, let alone wins a race in Monza, right? I loved the national anthem, literally goosebumps. We've all grown up to that national anthem in the Michael Schumacher days as well. But I have to ask you guys, which are your most favorite Ferrari cars in Formula One? Doesn't have to be the ones winning. Some of them, just the fact that they're Ferrari Formula One cars make them beautiful. Somil, since you love history so much, why don't I just put you on the spot? Which is your favorite Formula One Ferrari car? And you can choose many since they've had clearly almost 70 plus.
F2008, that was beautiful with the poking aero winglets, with the way the front nose just dips and curves in, with the way Kimi Raikkonen drove it at Spa, with the way it all ended, and the the lovely Marlboro branding as well. The way they just hit it with the barcodes, I love it, and that season is just pure vibes. And also Massa at Turkey, it's just good memories all around. So that has to be the one for me.
Massa at Turkey. Can I say the 2014 car that gave Fernando Alonso
Oh,
absolutely
come
no wins?
on.
No, of course not. But for a person who actually loves numbers, I would actually go in that direction. Maybe the 2002 or the 2004 car, because they were on the podium literally at every single race. We were talking about this earlier today, Somil.
Literally at breakfast, yeah,
We were
talking about the
discussing
same
this today
thing.
morning about Michael Schumacher's records that can never be broken. The one obviously being his one in 2002, where he finished on the podium in every race. So yeah, I think I'd probably go between one of those two, 2002,
Hey,
2004.
tell the world when he won the world championship in that year. You need to.
In 2002, he won it, I think, on the 21st of July, and the only
It's
one.
insane.
I think that was before even the summer break, and there's only one other person who's won it before that, just a couple of days earlier. I think that was Juan Manuel Fangio in the 1950s. So no one's going to be breaking that record as well.
Wow. But I was going to pick 2004 for obviously that very statistical reason. And let's remember, guys, these are all Ferraris. They're all scarlet red Ferraris. Of course, unless you were racing in North America, following it there, where you actually had blue and white Ferraris as well. But I've got a few favorites. I think the 1996 Ferrari, just the way, those cars were fragile, and the fragility of those cars really appeals to me. 2004, I also loved the F60, the 60 years of Ferrari, also had the barcode. Just that car didn't win for Ferrari, like just lots of cars haven't won. I was hoping that the SF24 also turns black this weekend, but maybe they're waiting for Lewis Hamilton to join before they turn that car black, I guess.
I just remembered which other Ferrari car I love. The 2007 McLaren.
Nicely done, my friend. Nicely done.
I also remembered the step.
We had three Ferrari cars in the top three. Of Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso, and Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, so that's one of the better Ferrari cars that we've seen in recent times. Yes, Kunal.
Yeah, but
Hey, we guys are also forgetting the 2024 Haas as well, or the 2016 Haas. That's also a good Ferrari.
Yeah,
2016 Haas, their first year in Formula One, and I think they finished as high as fifth. No, I think that was the year later. But yes, a good start for Haas that season.
I loved the step nose Ferrari F 2012, I think.
2012, yes.
Yeah, I love these special names they give for special years because of 60 years to Ferrari in Formula One, so F60, and now of course there's SF24 that's being raced this season. But yes, Sommel seems very upset.
You can't love the Ferrari. You can't love the Ferrari that gave Fernando Alonso so much trauma. You can't love it that much.
It's like I don't remember the trauma when it comes to Ferrari or whatever. You just remember that.
You must, Sundaram. You must remember that year very vividly.
I try to forget, but I cannot. But it also kind of showed that Fernando is a legend of the sport. That car in itself, a car that could understeer and oversteer at the very same time, it did put him up there. So I can't hate it as much. But I know he should have won the title, but it's okay.
I'll share a Fernando stat from the 2024 Italian Grand Prix, a very painful one. He finished 1/10 away in 11th place from Kevin Magnussen, who had a 10-second time penalty, which we will of course talk about. But crucially, he was 2 seconds away from 9th place because Alexander Albon was just about there itself. So Aston Martin was outraced by Haas and Williams at Monza. But those are not the teams we're going to focus on. Sommel's got a hard deadline. He's been pinging saying, okay, 15 minutes left from now. We got to switch to McLaren. Quick question. starting 1-2, finishing 2 and 3, making massive inroads in the Constructors' Championship, which they pretty much know is going to be theirs, unless Ferrari really continues this path of resurrection, in which case we're going to have 3 teams battling for the Constructors' Championship.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what we all love, right? We don't care who wins as long as there's a battle. But quick question. Do you, Somil, think that they should have inverted the drivers, or they should have used team orders at any point of time to even give them give themselves a chance in the Drivers' Championship?
No. Even though Nico Rosberg is going to kill me and Zach Brown for this, I believe McLaren are doing the right thing by standing by their ethical code. And some people say they need to take off their mask of ethics and try to be more logical. And that's the debate we always tend to have in life, right? Any husband versus wife argument, you might know, Kunal, it's always around logics versus emotions. And this is what McLaren are going through right now. The logic says back one driver, get them to maximize everything. The other one would tail along, get a 1-2, maximize your points. But that's the kind of situation McLaren are in, giving their drivers the opportunity to go and explore what their races are like. But the only reason why they can and are able to do it is because both of their drivers are not complete drivers yet. And that is McLaren's problem. They have got 2 almost equals, Oscar maybe, let's say, and a 0.85 for Lando's a 0.9. But 2 nearly equal drivers, but nobody's that one whole number one, like a Max Verstappen is. So they can't back that one driver. And this is something that's costing McLaren at this stage more than ever now. That start, Lando Norris, yet another start where he's lost positions. As Sundaram and I were discussing earlier, I'm not sure if he could have done much more to protect against Oscar, because that was just a blinding start by Piastri, which is why we love him so much. And he's also gone out after the race, Oscar, to say that it is in part my fault as well that I didn't nudge the team enough to go for a one-stop. In hindsight, that is. Great mentality. But on the other hand, Lando's gone to the media and said that Oscar got too close for comfort. I am in this space where I don't know if McLaren have their number one driver. It's just 0.5, which is good for the constructors, but they need someone to step up more often, more consistently. It's not a good problem to have now. It's a bad problem to have now, Kunal, because yes, they're adding constructors' points, but it sometimes goes down to their own detriment, this whole ethical game that they're playing.
Wow, that was beautifully explained.
There's a rant.
But before I respond, I really want to hear what Sundaram has to say. So Somil's on the space where I'm glad they didn't use team orders. Let's hear you, Sundaram.
Yeah. No, even I'm glad they didn't use team orders. And we were speaking about logic versus emotion. My question is, why is everyone talking so much about Lando Norris's Drivers' Championship, which is a much more difficult task than the Constructors' title? Logic for me seems the Constructors' title, one they've not won in 17 years. Emotion is constantly running behind Lando Norris's Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
And at this point, having 2 drivers more consistently giving points has to be the priority than one who has a higher chance of slipping up. McLaren is very, very close to overtaking Red Bull in the Constructors' title, but I think they really need to prioritize that on a weekend where Red Bull was starting 7th and 8th. Their priority should have been, let's focus on a 1-2. If we get closer to the Drivers' Championship, then we can figure how we can give Norris every single point. And it would have set a very bad precedent because Piastri, like Somil said, put in a blinding start. So everything that he had done would have been undone if they felt, okay, let's swap positions because Norris has a better chance at the Drivers' Championship. You need to appreciate and really need to appreciate and give the benefit to the person who's had a better start, is what I feel.
I completely agree with both of y'all. I absolutely hate seeing team orders in Formula One, despite having grown up and loved the whole Michael Schumacher era where, team orders were the name of the game and whatever the sport has been through. And to me, if Lando wants or Lando has to win, or for that matter, any driver has to win the Drivers' Championship, the first person they have to beat is their teammate.
Yeah.
Right? In Monza, Lando Norris finally got a good start. He thought he's going to lead. He was leading till he made a mistake at the exit of turn 2. There is an onboard video from Lando Norris's car. Formula One has just tweeted out. Check out that video. I see it on Twitter. Like I said, tweeted out, yeah, so clearly. But when you see that onboard from 13th second to 20th second, he actually he goes very eager on the power delivery, on that throttle. Okay. And he's got a twitch. Oscar Piastri saw that twitch and said, guess what? I'm going to get a clean exit and then attack you into Della Roccia. And he did that. And that was a very, very ballsy move. I absolutely loved what Piastri could do there. And just so happens, I mean, Norris has to, and he's himself said, I need to first beat my teammate. Oscar just had a better start and he did what he did that was so good at it. But then we should also ask the question, and maybe we also know the answer now in hindsight. Like, Oscar said, everyone's smarter on the Monday. Clearly, that's why we are recording on the Monday as well. But, could the McLaren drivers have risked a one-stop strategy?
I feel there's a lack of ruthlessness, which is easy for me to say sitting on my chair. I get why McLaren are doing what they're doing. They're following up. And this is, again, let me frame this properly. McLaren have got to where they are from where they were in the doldrums by following a great set of systems and processes. Processes driven by logic, processes driven by data, and smart decision making. At the very top level, these smart decision making metrics sometimes fail because that's where instinct works. Very few cases. Today was a case of just that, where Leclerc and Ferrari's instinct, in a way, was handed to them by McLaren boxing. But that is what worked in their favor. The data and the logic said, tires are not working. What do? We go for a second set of tires. It's a simple, logical, data-based decision. And that's what's gotten McLaren so far. But at that very top, maybe that slight bit of ruthlessness is missing, which is where, in my head, I feel Piastri is the future of that team. Build around him. He's the one who's ruthless. He's the one who will send that move on the outside, knowing that there could be consequences, but I want to be the one taking it. I'm not going to bottle the start. I'm going to be the one who grabs the race by the scruff of its neck and does the best possible job. And even if Lance Stroll might be impeding him and driving like apparently it was his first go-kart race, according to Oscar himself, he will do whatever he can to get that final edge, which is something we've seen from Lando sometimes, but not always. And that's where I feel McLaren are right now. It's what has made them so good is what is inhibiting them from getting those big wins time and again, I feel.
Samuel, I think I should just switch to asking the questions, because usually when you ask the questions, you don't give such elaborate, beautiful answers.
But again, everyone's smarter on a Monday.
Yeah. Clearly, you guys have had a blast in the Indian Racing League. I can feel the adrenaline still pumping through. But Sundaram, do you have the same take that McLaren? I mean, this is one of those drivers' press conferences where one driver just gives a beautiful answer and the other one says nothing to add and just leaves it at that. But please add to it if you.
I can't top that. No comments. I'm sticking with what Samuel said.
I think McLaren were done in by the fact that they were leading the race. They didn't want to be the ones taking the risk.
Yeah.
And like Oscar said, Charles would have anyway finished third, had whether he had pitted or not, and that just did them in. But like you're saying here, Samuel, the instinct, the ability to take that risk, the guts that you need to back such a decision is what went lacking, is what probably will come with experience. And I think that's just what McLaren are going for. So even if they don't get the Drivers' Championship, they're still learning, they're still absorbing, they're going to be understanding next time they're in a situation like this. I don't think they will make the same mistake again, right? And it's beautiful to see a team learn like this, like the way we saw Max Verstappen learning his racecraft, crashing every race when he used to and making a fool out of himself, and then suddenly turning up to be this monster that just won everything. We saw that transition, and I'm guessing we're going to see that transition. I'm very sure we're going to see that transition with McLaren, because they've engineered a beautiful car and now they're just struggling to match the ambitions and the aspirations that sort of come with it.
I agree. And to add to that, look at the kind of people who run the top of that team. Zach Brown is a motorsport marketing head, a genius in that regard. Look at what he's done to revolutionize the commercial side of that thing. Andrea Stella is an engineering maestro, rising in from being Fernando's race engineer to now being McLaren's team principal. He's seen the technical side of the team so well. But there are some team principals who hold the power dynamic much better, like a Maurizio Rivabene. Not really engineering smart, but he has command. He holds respect and dignity in that aspect, where if he asks the driver to do something, they will do it out of fear. Maybe it didn't end up very well, but a Toto Wolff, firm, clear. If Lewis is the man, Lewis is the man. And that's what we are going for. That killer instinct maybe I don't know if this management is the right management. Maybe it was aimed at getting McLaren to the top of the engineering pile, which they are right now, undoubtedly. But that ruthless decision maker in that team, I wonder where that person is. And we can see that with Mercedes, we can see that with Red Bull. I'm still struggling to see that with McLaren a little bit, and also Ferrari now, even though Fred's here. But again, this is maybe the next step in their evolution, Sundaram.
I'm still a little puzzled by Zach Brown's comments from after the race, where he said that, Papaya rules. We let both our drivers go for it. We let them fight. We let them fight clean, and we don't have a number one in the team. I'm not sure if he's just trying to keep both sides happy, because both of them are performing exceptionally well this year, so that you
Yeah.
choose one over the other one's going to be disheartened and say, I've done just as well. Why am I the number two? But like you said, someone needs to make these hard decisions and say, you know what, we're not clearly saying who's a number one or number two, but on that day, if you are the one who's ahead at turn one or lap one, you get the priority, and we stick to this order because we can maximize points. It doesn't necessarily have to be a number one, number two thing.
But isn't that what they're doing technically? Like that's what they sort of have in principle. But then
I'm still
wonder-
surprised. I'm still surprised that they let them fight at the very front. I'm still very surprised that they let them do that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm actually on the other side of the spectrum. I'm not surprised they let them fight, especially at the start, because the start is when everyone's trying to make inroads into your position, literally your lead or whatever you call it. But at some of the other points of the time, maybe they could have swapped. I don't know. My reading is, if we had to have a new drivers' champion this year, it's only going to come via team orders, period. Okay. With Max Verstappen struggling so much, there is a very high chance that 70 points gap will be nothing if they really were to engineer all the wins for Lando Norris. But was Norris there? Beyond the start, Norris wasn't even in contention for the win for 52 and a half laps of the race. So we should just move on, because the day he is in... we can, for example, discuss Hungary and question them for team orders. But everything else, pretty pointless, right? Because eventually it was Ferrari and Leclerc that won, not even Red Bull, not even Mercedes, despite George Russell being third fastest, a brilliant qualifying lap. That saw him put it there.
But had this been Ferrari, we would have made a mockery of them for days. And that is what makes me appreciate Red Bull racing so much. And in these aspects, and again, I love that Formula One is now a mixture of all three different teams and their strengths and their weaknesses. So there's no real one perfect team, and everyone's got their own good or bad aspects. But in this aspect, Red Bull has been so good. But the operations today went wrong. It's a weird, I say today, but it was yesterday. But you have something to add on that.
I have to ask.
Uh-huh.
Is it papaya rules or mango rules or watermelon rules?
I like mango rules.
Yeah, I think I'd probably... Okay, I'm going to take watermelon rules. I don't know. To me, these when you corporatize racing so much. Okay, and what did Zach Brown say? We're going to review Oscar Piastri's lap one pass on Lando Norris.
Rubbish.
Come on.
He's actually said
that is probably the best pass I've seen this season.
Seriously.
And he's saying we will see if it complies with papaya rules.
What do you mean if it complies? A driver sees an opportunity, he brakes late, he passes someone on the outside, and he wins. That's all there is to it. That is what racing is. So if
and
you don't
he
want to go
gave
racing,
ample room there as well. Much like Lando said, had I braked a meter later, we would have both crashed. But there's a reason why Lando didn't want to brake a meter later as well. He was on the inside. He had to brake more, longer, harder. He had to slow down even more so, and he had a second mid-corner twitch in just 5 corners.
I know I'm breaking my own time limit here, and I've got to sleep a few minutes later according to that as a result. But I'm confused. Lando said, and I quote, I think he got too close for comfort. That word comfort is what's ringing in my head now. Is there a sense of comfort at the starting lap that my teammate will not attack me? Why is there comfort in Formula One?
I think Lando's just waiting for McLaren to make a decision. He doesn't want to publicly put Oscar under the bus and say, I was hoping he'd not overtake me. I was hoping he backs me up. And that's actually very nice of him. We're not trying to take Lando's pants down, guys. Everyone listening in, we know the United Kingdom is a big market. Lots of people listening in, especially from London. But we're not trying to, put a driver down. He's great character. He's, deserves everything that comes his way. But he also shouldn't be given things on a platter, much like several other drivers have been done so in the past.
Vettel took it. Schumacher took it. Hamilton took it. If Lando wants to be a part of those three guys, you need to take it, man. This is what I can sense from here. I don't know. We'll see.
On to Lando Norris's best friend in the paddock, Max Verstappen. The Telegraph actually quotes Max Verstappen saying he has found what the problem with the RB20 is. And he has pointed out that problem and told the engineers, go fix that. Now, that really awaits to be seen if that happens. Because, like I said at the start of the episode, fourth fastest by a distance. They're 8 points behind now, or just 8 points ahead in the constructors? It's ridiculous just what has happened to Red Bull. My favorite Red Bull quote from the weekend was when Checo Perez said that I've been facing these problems for the last 8 to 10 races. And for once now, Max is facing those problems as well. And Max was just 0.040, so 400ths of a second quicker than Checo Perez in qualifying. Now, when last did that happen, that Perez was so close to Max Verstappen? All our friends in Mexico, we feel for you.
That changes my perspective on Sergio's season so far.
Yeah, and they have Baku coming up and then Singapore. So I pretty much don't see what's happening. I think it's going to be a three-way battle for constructors, like we said, and maybe a three-way battle for P2 in the Drivers' Championship as well. Could be Norris, Leclerc, Piastri. It's all going to fall somewhere there, depending how the execution is going to be. But in the interest of Sommel's sleep, let's move on. What's next, Sommel?
Just one thing to mention on Red Bull, and many people might be wondering, if in case you haven't checked the newspapers and you've come to us for your Formula 1 information, firstly, I love you. Thank you. It's our duty to tell you what happened to Max. Apparently, there was an engine issue, and he says that we might have to change up the whole car before we come to Baku. The extent of the problem, I don't know. But that's what was apparently also plaguing him. So there's the objective reasoning for why they weren't very good. But the more behind-the-scenes stuff about the car gripping away, we spoke to Dr. Helmut Marko on that, and he gave us a bit of insight on these things as well, about how the car is just not feeling the same balance since the last few months. And that's an episode you can listen to in full on the Inside Line F1 podcast. So check out all of our episodes previously. And we should now do a quick roundup of all the other news stories, because we had so much going on apart from this as well, Kunal. It's so much.
Franco Colapinto. What a debut. Half a second away from Alexander Albon. I think Williams chose the undercut. He undercut 5 drivers on pace, on merit in that Williams, even though he didn't finish in the points. I think it was impressive. But like we said in the preview, Monza is the one place you can impress because it's one of those easier circuits to be at. And then Kevin Magnussen. Somebody has actually gotten a race ban. Again, and it has to be a Haas driver or a former or a future Haas driver, like it happened in the case of Romain Grosjean as well. So I believe it's going to be Oliver Behrman, who then again Sundaram will throw up this stat. Which last non-Red Bull driver drove for 2 different teams in the same season? I don't know. If you guys know, tweet it to us, because Behrman drove for Ferrari in Jeddah, and then Haas could be Haas yeah.
Who was it?
I'm not even going to try. Sundaram's going to dig through his database. He's going to make a beautiful looking graphic. He's going to put it
after I get 7 hours of sleep. Yes, please.
Yeah, we both barely had anything after the street race yesterday.
The final point about that wrap up was Alexander Albon. He had to score those points for Williams. He got into Q3. He scored P9, and I think that itself was another beautiful delivery. And I strongly believe Williams with 2 competitive drivers are going to be a headache for all the other teams in the midfield out there. So that's going to be beautiful. Nico Hülkenberg, fairly clumsy onto Yuki Tsunoda, right? Normally, I don't know if Nico and Kevin were just wearing each other's helmets and driving each other's cars with different names, because Kevin had a Nico-ish race and Nico had a Kevin-ish race. And then Daniel Ricciardo, that move under braking in the entry of Ascari opening lap on Hulkenberg, very weird. Hulkenberg, beautiful catch. But did you guys see that Ricciardo was serving a 5-second time penalty and his mechanic touched the front wing by mistake?
Oops.
And then he had to serve a 10-second stop and go penalty, the most gruesome in race penalties any driver can get, which are these stop and go penalties. But did we miss out on anything else? Did anyone miss Logan Sargent?
Of one thing. We missed Logan Sargent.
Why?
Today is not maybe the right day to tell you more about why we miss him, but the sequence of events was interesting. Nico Hulkenberg got pushed wide by Ricciardo under braking, and then he took out the anger of one AlphaTauri on the other AlphaTauri by hitting Yuki Tsunoda. It's like, I see a blue and white car, I'm going to absolutely ram into it, and I'll figure out later who it was. Incredible. That's what anger management is like.
But ending on a little piece of trivia, I just suddenly remembered the question. Kunal, you asked who was the last non-Red Bull driver to drive for two different teams in a single season. You don't have to look beyond 2020, if you can remember.
Hulkenberg. No?
A certain George Russell.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's such an anticlimax of a... but you're right. You're right. And then Oscar Piastri gave us a t-shirt quote whenever it is that we launch our merchandise, which has been in the works for 3 years. I was not surprised you stayed out. I was surprised that you survived. That's what he told Charles Leclerc. And I think they were just so puzzled. Everyone was puzzled because throughout the entire race, the discussion was, is it a 2-lap race? Is it, 2-stopper, 1-stopper, 2-stopper, 1-stopper? And this is the moment, the final moment of this episode where someone's like, this has to end now. We've crossed the 42nd minute mark. But we've had a great race, a great episode. And this Thursday, there's going to be Dr. Helmut Marko, second episode talking about 20 years of Red Bull racing.
Yes.
It's going to get nice and spicy.
Yeah, we're going to tell you about one driver that Helmut Marko really wanted in Red Bull, but never could sign.
One or two?
One or two. Two of them. Yes, indeed. But all of that and more will come shortly, folks. We've got to say goodbye. Unfortunately, a little bit earlier than usual, which is saying quite something now that it's 42 minutes in the episode. But we could talk about it for an hour and a half, and we have done for the last few races as well. And we will continue to do so in the other ones as well when we have a lot more time on offer. But thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you've had a great weekend watching the Formula One action. And if you get the chance, even if you're not in India, just check out India's first ever night street race. We're joining the likes of Jeddah, the likes of Singapore, and the likes of what other city? Las Vegas is hosting a night street race. Very cool event. If you can check it out, that'll be quite awesome. Subscribe to the Indian... look at me with my broadcast voice on. Subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast, and we'll see you in a couple of days, folks. Bye-bye.